I'm wearing my favorite brown shirt.
Everyone has their favorite team shirt on today. Patrick apparently is a fan of UPS. Keep it brown. And I've got Krieger on, 3 teams at the semis from the semis to the games, and Mike's got the underdogs sneaking in.
They were the last in, but don't count against them.
Yeah,
not going to be the first out. Gonna make it past that first cut, Mike.
Let's hope so.
We'll talk about
and also,
that.
And Raf
they're
Durand,
doing plenty of advertising. If we can talk about that.
Yeah, Raf Durand put up a nice. I thought that was pretty clever. You sent that to me yesterday, Mike. Just talking about the team situation and why you should root for the teams. So today's show is a second of 3 in a row that we're doing this week, previewing the 3 different divisions that will be competing in Fort Worth, Texas for the 2024 CrossFit Games next week. If you missed our show on the women yesterday, go back and check that out. We could go, 40 all the way up to 1, talk about many of the athletes, maybe not all of them in a ton of depth, but a lot of them we dig into there. We're going to do similarly with the teams today, starting with the bottom 30 and go up. My picks are on B.Friendly Fitness. Patrick's got his picks that he's going to reveal on the show today alongside mine. And we're joined by Mike Halpin from Known Knowable. Once again, he's going to be with us all 3 days this week. He's not doing rankings necessarily. He is just asking questions, poking holes in our picks and making observations.
Yeah.
He's
a moderator.
There we go.
Exactly. Speaking of teams, however, there's another team competition, a kind of a unique one that's coming up in September, and you guys have a chance to be involved in the process in the run-up to it right now in terms of being able to choose the captains or vote for the captains for those teams. And I believe they're going to be revealed tonight on the Spin show. I was a little confused because I thought the voting was through August 1st, but then Spin usually goes on Wednesday. But Barbell Spin will be revealing live the results of the captains' vote, and you guys can vote. And then the captains will have several different kind of roles throughout the process, from choosing the last member of their team to competing in a specific event that's only captains at the competition. So you have to be chosen from the 3 that were selected by or invited to be a part of it. And we're going to vote here live on the show, I guess. Patrick, you're just making that decision?
Well, no, it's up to you guys. What do you guys think? What do you want to see?
It's it's the thing that's interesting to me is that, you get like this person has to compete. And so when I'm voting for these captains, I also am thinking about who do I want to actually see go head to head in a captains match in Huntington Beach in California. And I want to see Ricky and Vellner go head to head in a 1-on-1 format. I think that's
not Roman and Adler.
That'd
be your other.
That would be another great choice. Yes, I would. I think. Oh man,
and Justin versus Lazar. Those guys have a history.
That's actually true.
Ooh,
so there's 3 potential right, and actually I'm going to talk about that with Justin and Lazar tomorrow. So I guess really it is interesting because you could certainly choose any one of those 3 matchups and get a little bit of a rivalry throwback situation. I feel like, I don't know, man. I already voted personally for this. I think I did vote for Ricky and Pat. I'm okay voting for someone else here, though.
Mike, what are you saying? What do you think?
I personally voted for Lazar in this case.
Okay. Well, guess what? Roman it is.
Oh.
All right. We'll put down Roman for the women of the world. It feels to me like Tia's going to run away with this vote. Just based on the other 2 women are incredible. But it'll be interesting to see if the international, if the European voice really speaks up, or if Sahar gets a big push from, the Turkish and Norwegian community. And I think that's potentially like something that we need the international community to kind of rally behind, and hopefully have a big contingency of vote. That would be cool if Wadapalooza had an ability to track where all the votes were coming from.
That would be
cool. Well, we better keep Lynn happy, though, I think. Let's give a vote for Emma Tall, since we didn't have her in the top 10 yesterday.
Anyone disagree with that?
No, it works for me.
Emma it is.
I love that. I love that Emma Tall is on the team.
Yeah.
We voted for who do we vote for? Roman?
Yep. I think
Should we
because
put-
we voted Bowman,
You
we should
gotta
go. Yep. So Adler it is.
give it to the fittest.
Okay, fair enough. That's a tough choice on the North American men. Again, I don't know. I feel like in terms of the public overall, this is going to be close between Lowen and DB. So let's vote for Raptus.
Mike, any
Okay.
disagreement?
Yeah, I like that.
All right.
Plus, I think that would be a fun.
For, but yeah,
And I think that would be a fun matchup too. Raptus versus Emmental. They were one spot away from each other at the games last year. I think that different fan groups are both excited for their performance this year. In some ways, they both had a little bit of maybe like a one spot better than you would have expected at the semifinal. So I like it. If you haven't voted, go out there, put your votes in. It's a fun thing to do. Doesn't take much time. And then maybe not a great captain. Maybe don't know. But she might be a good competitor in whatever that workout ends up being, though. Plus, as a captain, you always have the ability to delegate. Maybe she could say, I don't want to make these decisions. Ariel, you make these decisions. I'll just do the workout.
Well, it says here 1 day. There's still a day left, according to this tracker. So
maybe Spin's
I had
pushing
heard
his
the same
show.
thing.
Maybe
Yeah,
a Spin's
maybe.
pushing his show to tomorrow night for that. They're not going
Maybe.
tonight. I'm not sure.
I'm sure they're probably going tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that in the chat and also be in the comment section or in the description of the show. So if you guys want to see, saw how simple it was. So let's go. I'm going to drop that in there for you guys.
Oh, it might be the reveal might be next week. So you have a
That
day and a half to make the votes, and then they'll. Okay, there we go.
All right.
And link is there. We'll put in the notes. Good. All right, that's out of the way. TYR Cup having some traction picking up throughout the summer. Obviously, it's very talented teams, and still got to find out who the captains are and who the last member of the team will be, which will be coming up in the next few weeks. All right, Patrick. Anything else before we get straight into it?
No. Let's go right into it.
Okay. Well, before we show you any of our picks, I wanted to, similarly to yesterday, because, when we put these rankings out here, we're ranking every team 1 through 30. I did see someone comment that they think I gave up on picks after the top 5. That's not the case. I consider all these teams and try to give some meaning to the picks, some thought process behind them. There are, of course, in some cases where I'm kind of just grouping teams, the same way that I group individual athletes, and then I try to make the best guess within there. Team competitions actually usually do quite well because even though there's a lot of turnover, as I'm going to show you guys in a second, from team to team or from year to year between the teams, there's a lot of similar athletes that compete and similar gyms that put forth teams, and the experience definitely comes into play in the team competition. The hard part about doing the 1 through 30 is that you got to pick teams at the bottom. And again, just kind of lean on history for that. So let me see if I can get this up here. This is something that comes into conversation. Can you see that, PC?
I certainly can.
Yeah. So this is something that comes into conversation a lot when we're talking about just the way that things are distributed internationally. There were some differences in the number of spots this year, but these are from the last, and there were some years that teams couldn't show up or didn't show up for a variety of different reasons. But if you look at these 3 competitive regions, South America, Asia, and Africa, over the last 3 seasons, it's just not a great track record. And this is not anything against the teams, the boxes, the athletes. These are just numbers on paper. So in that 2021 year, there were only 37 teams, and those, the 5 team, well, 1 team didn't show up there. The 4 teams that did show up, Africa did the best, 30th, 33rd for the Eto team from Brazil. Asia had one team that showed up. They were 35th, and Q21 was 36th. So you got 4 teams in the bottom 7 there. 2022, they had the bottom 3 teams out of 36 that showed up, 1 from South America, 2 from Asia. Africa didn't have a representative. I know I misspelled black there. And then 2023, there was 40 teams. All 40 teams showed up last year, I think. And there's the Asian teams did the worst, 36th and 39th. The South American teams, 33rd, 35th, and the Cape Wolfpack from Africa, again, were the best at 31st. And yeah, as far as this year goes, Kalashnikov team, Andrei Fedotov did not get a visa approved, so they won't be coming, and that's why you see only 1 team there from Asia in 2024. So those are the 4 teams that'll make it. And just based on history, it's difficult to pick these teams making it through that first cut.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, the data speaks for itself. Mike, as someone who specializes in data, I mean, what seeing those numbers, what do you think?
I'd love to see one of these teams finally do
Yeah,
something besides that, but it's hard to like really say too much beyond, yeah, they gotta do it first and they gotta make it there first. So
Yeah.
like coming a long way to get all the way out here. I think on the team side, I haven't seen as much as that they get out here early. It seems like that's a lot of travel to finally get here and then be able to stay here. But yeah, I'd like to see somebody make the cut if they can. But
well, Brian, if you want, we'll just jump right into the picks, the bottom 10. So these are the teams that won't make the first cut. There's 2 cuts. They'll cut from 30 to 20, I believe, at the end of the first or second day of competition.
Second day. So it seems like for the teams, it's slightly different than the individuals. 2 days for everybody. The 20 compete on Saturday, 10 compete on Sunday. The nuance for the individuals is that they have a workout Saturday morning before there's a cut.
yeah, Chad.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go right into it then. Like I said, not much discrepancies between our picks, and nothing that really points out. I think the really thing that I wanted to see is CrossFit Kima. They really surprised at West Coast. Obviously, that's a team with Travis Williams, and you had him at 27th. I put him a little higher, 24th. I actually, looking again, I probably would have put him probably right at the 22nd, 21st of that cut line. What was your thinking between Kima being there at the bottom with those other teams, those international teams?
Yeah, I mean, I thought CrossFit Kima had a pretty good run at semifinals. They definitely were the most surprising team for me out west. They have it's a strange makeup of athletes. You know, besides Travis Williams, they have a Brady Borchardt on that team that's 6'7". They have Cody Viteto on that team. I believe that's 5'2" or 3, and a relatively unknown athlete in Alyssa Taylor. So I just think that the experience and everything there, I think that they're likely to get exposed at the games more so than they were at semifinals. And towards the end, I mean, they had a really strong showing and they did surprise me, but I don't think that the games is going to be great for them. The level of competition overall in this field is really high. And so, yeah, they're kind of like the one team from North America that I did have in this bottom group with everyone else. And I made these also. So first of all, the colors are kind of like those are the tiers or groupings that I was talking about. And then so you can see those as we go through these, but also to let you guys see the athletes that are actually competing on these teams. I think that that's one of the big misses that we've had with team competitions. Obviously, there are certain teams like the Mayhem teams, some of the Invictus teams, you know, Reykjavik when they had that team, proven last year that they have big enough names and athletes, recognizable stars from the sport that have made many times their names as individuals first. And we know those. But even if you think about the Oslo Navy Blue team from the past 3 years that have had team athletes consistently making the podium, a lot of people still don't even know who those athletes are. And I think that just doing simple stuff like this of putting the names next to the team and doing that more regularly is a way to help build interest and investment into the team competition.
Yeah, and you see some of these names pop up into the individual field too. And like I was working on a rookie article I put out this morning or last night. And like there's teams athletes that it's just sort of like, well, nobody saw this person coming. And it's like, well, they were in the teams for 3 years and you would have known their name if anybody ever like printed something like this. So yeah, I love that, Brian.
It was, you know, when I first heard that they were going to have with Northern Spirit team jerseys at semifinals, I thought that was great. But then I realized they weren't going to have their names, the individual names on them. And it's kind of like, I mean, you can make the argument of the Yankees or the Red Sox that they only put the number and not the name of the individual, but you still know who the players are. They announce them by name when they're coming up to bat, or, you know, they show their name when they take the field out there. And it's really difficult for me to think of a team sport where they don't talk about the athletes by their names also. And yet in CrossFit, we've gotten a little bit better at it, but still not. I just still think there's a lot of room for improvement there.
Looking at your list, first time seeing it. You guys want to talk about Einhorn? Brian, you're a little bit more bullish on them.
Yeah, CrossFit Einhorn. Their coach is pretty experienced coach. They have a lot of team experience just in general. I'm trying to remember how they did it the semifinals. I think they were just kind of like fighting for a spot.
Yeah, they're right in the bubble there.
They don't. I mean, this team is, I would say, is a little bit raw in terms of the athletes that they have. You guys see them there: Clay Ferris, Zach Carroll, Ramirez, Sierra Cole, and Taylor Reber. But I think of them somewhat similarly to TTT team, or even a Milford team, maybe, but that they have some good veteran experience and coaching strategy that can make differences in terms of a few spots on the leaderboard. So, starting with the Kama team down in 27 all the way up to the Dogs in 21, I kind of grouped these athletes these teams in a similar range where I think it would be a successful weekend if they made it out of the first cut. And I just kind of tipped Einhorn a little bit ahead of a couple of the other teams based on just the experience that I think that they'll be able to lean on from, in particular. A couple of these athletes have team experience, but also their coach.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and to me, it's like I kind of knowing that they do have a good coach, but it is somewhat of a new team and inexperienced. That's one reason why I put them so low. But that team, along with some of these other teams, whether it be the TTT team or the Kima, where they do have like one or two like semifinal individual type athlete or some veteran, but I kind of grouped them all together. It's kind of, I mean, over team density is another case. You'll see Brian has them rated a little bit higher than I do. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing. A lot of these teams, they can be grouped together. If we pull up the names like we did before, you'll see a lot of familiar names in terms of like semifinal, like a Taylor Reber or Travis Williams, or for over team density, so Brooke Hawes. You'll see like one of those type of athletes in there, or Jordan Adcock for TTT, someone like that.
Yeah, I was sort of wondering I see your name there too, Paulina Haro. I know that name. So, yeah, I think there's an interesting sort of in and out when it comes to teams, just at a higher level of like I was saying before, there's names that you may not hear right now, but maybe in a year from now, some of these names are showing up in the individual field, or they were right on the cusp of a semifinal 2 years ago and they switched the team for this year, stuff like that. But then you see the other side of like, no, they've been historically semifinal athletes and now they're switching the team. I mean, we're seeing it that at the highest levels of athletes too, with like, I'm sure we'll get there Noah, but like it's interesting to see the ebb and flow of this, where people are going to fight for their affiliate or fight for their camp within an affiliate after so many years of maybe trying it in semifinals on their own.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal for athletes in the sport to call themselves a CrossFit Games athlete. And I think that there are people that would make the argument that if you qualify in a team, you're not a CrossFit Games athlete. But for the athletes, that's not the case. It very much is a feeling of pride of being good enough to compete at the CrossFit Games. And the Affiliate Cup is something that's existed for the entire duration of our sport. I do think that it's been undersold compared to what it could be. But in terms of the athletes themselves, the pride that they take and the meaning that it has and the work that they've done to be able to do this and to be there and to compete is extremely significant. I also feel like teams just sort of lack someone who champions them, like a person with clout or a high position within CrossFit. They always seem to take a back seat. Yeah,
well, they had Rich, but it still didn't bring that much prestige. When I kind of look back at it, I mean, until we're blue in the face, but the year where Annie put her super team together, when CrossFit or Hamilton Roads was doing the miles to Madison, including them in that, traveling along with that, they did a good job of doing that. I don't think it brought any more interest. I mean, maybe there was a little bit more interest that year than in past years, but you're not seeing that. And this year would have been a great opportunity when you have two teams like Noah and another team with Chandler on, but again, that costs money. It would have been nice to see something like a Miles of Madison with those two teams.
Yeah. And I mean, it reminds me of conversations that we've had over the years with when it comes to the Masters competition. Is that there is this voice of people that are asking for more Masters coverage, but when there is more Masters coverage, it isn't consumed at the same rate of the individuals, and that's what happened with those Miles to Madisons. Is that they did make the investment to cover that team that year, and the consumption of the product that was created around the team was less than that around the individuals for the Miles to Madison episodes. So if you are a person, or, you know, in this case, maybe an athlete or a team or at an affiliate that has, you know, regularly sending teams and individual, you know, teams to the games, like, you need to be consuming that stuff, and you need to be helping to spread the message and get the word out. I definitely agree that there could be, so I think when she says a high position within CrossFit, she's referring to, you know, someone like Dave Castro and Adrian Bosman. I mean, if it's actually true this year that Dave is programming the individuals, which it seems like he is, and Boz is programming the teams, we've had hardly any team releases so far, and Boz hasn't really made a forward presence to say, hey, I'm excited about programming this competition. These are some things I'm looking forward to, in the way that Dave has, and he could have, you know, he could have taken that initiative. I don't think there's very many other people that can, just because it's a pretty tight team that's involved with that.
Or you use Dave's newfound, you know, podcasting YouTube ability, and Dave should bring on Chandler or bring on Noah Olson. He's the guy that can get these athletes to come on for 10, 15 minutes to build up interest. He's got the channel. He's got the means now. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone's not telling him. That's what I would do at this point, especially with less than, what, we're at 8 days. If you want to bring some level of excitement, bring some of those athletes on your own channel. You've already done it for 40 athletes, and now he's branching off and doing like O'Keefe and some other people. You know, let's keep it on the athletes.
Yeah, I mean, but look, like Dave's done a lot, and he's been doing a great job.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking.
Sure.
Maybe someone else needs to step in, and if Adrian's the one that's taking the reins this year in terms of programming that, or you could lean into. I mean, they hired Joel Goodette to do the play-by-play again for the games, and this guy has talked to every team that's out there. He always does. He reaches out to the individuals, to the teams, to the coaches. He has all this information, and I know Joel well. Like, he would be more than willing to come forward and talk about this type of stuff, and he hasn't really been given an opportunity to do that. We probably should have invited him on this show, honestly, now that I'm talking it out.
Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing as, like,
oh, he may not have been able to do it, actually.
Dave and Boz, I mean, like, last few years, they didn't do any of what Dave did this year. So, like, you almost see it as like, okay, well, now 79 athletes are getting, like, fully promoted, their own 15 minutes of fame sort of, like, interviews and stuff like that. And then the team's got nothing. And I sort of feel bad for Boz, or like if something like that, if it was like, well, he wasn't just going to suddenly interview 30 teams out of the blue to match that. So it almost just becomes like this unimaginable. But
even on a different level, like, we've gotten 4 individual workouts.
That has been odd. And even, like, I was surprised even that we got the 2 that we got, because I feel like one of the only things I saw Boz put out was basically just like, wait until we get there, almost feeling of like, you're not going to find out anything until we're there. I think with the 2 that were announced, it was probably going to be, the board's probably good to know about. And then the Farrington, I could almost imagine that that's an outside event. If they need to test that event, there might be people that actually see them testing it in a public area. So that's what crossed my mind when those 2 got announced. But it seems like the whole other thing, is under like lock and key about what they're going to be doing. So
you know what else is missing is, I wish Noah and the Invictus team, I wish they would, like, I wish there was some trash talking between, friendly banter. You know, they have, these are 2 big personalities, 2 huge teams, you know, with media. They have their own media. You know, I know the media that for each one of those teams, they should have been doing something where, you know, I mean, just, you know, I know it's not the responsibility of the teams to do that, but I think that would have brought a lot more interest, you know, sell some people into it, because you haven't seen, ever since the semifinals, you haven't really heard much about the teams, like you said, but it's not even coming from the teams. It took Roth on a team that one of the last teams in due to a drug test to kind of make something about it. And everyone's, and like, people are talking.
Amazing. Yeah.
And great on Roth, because Roth knows the team division. He's been competing on teams ever since 2015, 2016. But great on
When
him.
you think back to one of the most compelling years of team competition, 2017,
Mhm.
and that was the year that the Adrian Conway and those guys came out with the Stop the Mayhem campaign months before the game, before the regionals had even happened. They were already talking about that, and Rich was already in the spotlight back then, obviously, and people were asking him about it, and he's like, "Yeah, bring it on, love it. I love that there's a challenger out there," and that narrative was not only like built up throughout the entire season, but there was tremendous follow through because those two teams were exchanging blows event after event at the games. It seems likely that that's going to happen with the Invictus and the Peak teams, but there hasn't been that same kind of, and you don't even have to mean it.
I know.
You can just put something out there, just have some fun with it.
Yeah. But anyways, we can talk.
So speaking of Roth and speaking of that team, I don't see him on your side, PC. So I can only imagine they're a little
probably
bit
has him
higher
13th.
Here we go again. But I'll grab maybe a team from each of you. Brian, why Rhino at 21 not making the cut, and then after that, PC, you can prepare yourself. Why EXF not making the cut?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm guessing
first.
that both these teams are kind of straddling that cut line is where they're going to most likely end up being. In terms of the Rhino dogs, I actually know all four of those athletes really well. Quite frankly, the girls are going to have to step up, like Alina and am I blanking on her name? Alina and Emily. Like they need to just like rise to the occasion and probably overperform a little bit to make the cut. They're not bad athletes, relatively inexperienced on a stage like this. And I don't think it's actually that big of a deal that they found out they got in a little bit late. I think that might actually play in their favor and give them a better chance to make the cut in this case. But, Roth is really carrying the burden there in terms of experience. Nikita Yundov is the other man on that team. And they just don't have a ton of experience there. So I think they're going to be close, but I just see them on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see where I have them at. Obviously, I have it making the cut, and a lot of it's just based on Roth and just that Rhino underdogs. I mean, last year they made the cut twice. It came down to like the last event for each time, and they just edged their way through. I mean, I think they made it on the final cut based on an appeal that they won. As a competitor, Roth is such a good team captain competitor. And Brian's right that this, especially the women, it's a young team. Nikita is very strong. He's a very good athlete. But I think just that having that Roth as an X factor kind of puts them in at least beating a cut. I mean, they played that underdogs role so well. And even in their own camp, they weren't even considered the best underdogs team coming out of that camp. But Roth was able to put a team together rather quickly. I think they only trained maybe 4 days combined going into semifinals. And
it came down to a tiebreaker, them even making it with their own other Rhino team. Yeah,
I don't love to make the comparison, but it reminds me a little bit of Colton Mertens. Like the guy has been riding the semifinal line year after year after year, and 3 years in a row it went his way, and then 1 year it didn't. And maybe we'll see how it goes for Rhino, but like they've been riding the line, barely making the cut last year, the final cut, barely getting in this year on a failed drug test and a tie break. So maybe they continue to defy the odds and make it through, but I think it's going to be close either way.
Yeah, I think
that's definitely in their DNA.
Yeah,
riding the line.
Yeah, that should be like the riding the line on a shirt or game shirt. But CrossFit EXF, the reason why I put them at 21 is simply just because some of those other teams a little bit more experience. They had either an athlete or two that was kind of like, when I looked at them, they were going to be the X factor and reason why they made the cut versus EXF. EXF, I don't have too much information on it besides seeing them at semifinals or their athletes. I can pull up their Brian. You might be able to help me out.
They got one. They have one returner from their. They had a really good showing at the games. Was it 2 years ago? I think 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And the only guy coming back is Moses. And then as far as I know, the others are new to their team. So it's similar. It feels similar to underdogs in that regard, where they have one experienced athlete that's going to be kind of.
I think he owns that gym. I believe.
Yes.
I think back at semifinals, I posted something about them. They won the complex, the team complex event, lifting event. So I posted something about that, and he reached out to me about a couple things. There's a guy that's coming to the games. He's been messaging me all about them since even before the semifinal. I think it's Blueprint. I think he follows you guys too. Blueprint Health and Fitness in Brisbane. He's coming out to the games. Huge EXF fan, and I told him, I was like, well, I'll happily take any stories you want to tag me in. I'll repost them because he will be following that team the entire weekend. We need folks like that to follow all these teams around.
That's great. And I mean, in general, the reason I didn't include the Oceania region in that first graphic with South America, Asia, and Africa is because their teams generally do well at the CrossFit Games. And obviously we have some teams that have some very recognizable names on there, but the CXF team managed to get through again to the games. And it's been a while since a team from Oceania has not made it past the first cut. And a lot of times they make it through to the top 20 when there's multiple cuts. But this year, that last cut is very aggressive to the top 10. I don't see them making the top 10, but I do think that all the Oceania teams will get through the first round of cuts.
Yeah, and for them in Oceania, it was only 20 points between first and third. So, and I mean, we're going to get to the first and second team, I'm sure, but like those are the names getting thrown around everywhere. I mean, you're going to have spoiler alert for anybody that saw the post already. I mean, you got Raw Iron up there pretty well, and so EXF being here, I don't mind it just because of how much newer they are and how much newer the team is itself. But like, they hung with the two Mayhem teams. So
you can say it. You're siding with me on this one. All right, thanks, Mike.
Well, yeah, all right. I think that's my questions on here. AR1, that's Augustine Raquelme's gym, right?
It's his gym.
Yeah.
He's not competing. He competed individually and did not make it to the games. This team is pretty good. I was told that they were actually quite dealing with a stomach bug during the semifinals. So they had taken second there, and they were kind of grateful to make it through. But the two men on this team, Piero Gorichon and Santiago Comba, have been they've been grinding to put a team together that was strong enough to actually represent South America well. And I think this is the best team that they've had. Melina Rodriguez out of Argentina is arguably in any given year, one of the top 3 fittest women individually in South America over the last 3 or 4 seasons. Maria Camila Quintero has had some success individually as well. I believe she's the fittest in her country, at least a couple of years. This is a good team. And that's why I have them placing the best amongst these teams. It's just difficult for me to pick any of those teams to do much better than this until somebody from that part of the world is able to do it.
Before we move on into the second cut, I do obviously, I have to do my Asia region plug, but Marvel Black, obviously coming in, great. I mean, that's awesome for their affiliate, Carlos, who that team, they returned 3 of the 4 athletes from last year. They're going to be part of that Korean contingency that you'll see in the opening games where they'll have a pretty large group compared to some of these other things. And it just shows the growth of Korea. And it just means a lot for them. I know Carlos, active duty military, lives out in Korea, has built a great community there. And he's actually on seminar staff in Korea now and runs the gym. And it's just really cool. I know he's really excited. When I talked to him at Asia, I even said to him, like, hey, just be ready. And that was actually the same thing I said to Roth. So the 2 teams I talked to after the semifinals in terms of, hey, be ready. You just never know. They made it in. So it's kind of cool seeing that. And I hope they do better than 28th. It'd be really cool. But like Brian, I think they're just kind of in the bottom of those bottom 3 right now for now. So moving on to the second group, 11 through 20. So there we are with the Rhino CrossFit Dogs. I have them at 20th. So
I have EXF at 19. So and Density, who you had just on the outside, I have just on the inside. And I would think, and then Carretero Pack is the one team I had outside the top 20, the one other team that you have inside here. So those are the only 4 teams that fell on either side of the line for us. And you got Carretero pretty high up there. I'm guessing you were just impressed with their semifinal performance.
Yeah, it really was. And I'm just impressed by that team. Obviously, I'm very I mean, we'll talk about it when we get there, but like you said, you had them kind of in the bottom, so there's obviously a lot of discrepancy.
Basically,
there.
what all I'm doing there is I think that the North American East and European semifinals were so strong compared to the West that after those top two Invictus teams, I'm basically not giving a lot of credit to beating anybody in that division, and thinking that even if you took third or fourth there, where I think they were fourth after the team that ended up failing a drug test, that they might have been even flirting with around 10th in the East.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, how would you explain your CrossFit 1124 then selection?
Yeah, I mean, you have them pretty high up there. The CrossFit 1124, I saw a couple comments on the post about that. I think they did as good as they could possibly do at the semifinals, and I think they're going to be a little bit more exposed at the games with some teams that will probably shine in some game style programming a little bit more. Certainly open to being wrong on that, but I want to see them back up that performance before I give them credit for a top 10 team.
And I think that's rightfully so. They're one of only two teams in the field that are complete game rookies. Like everyone else has at least one individual that's made it to the games, either on a team or as an individual athlete. So CrossFit 1124 and the other team, I believe, is the Tiger Valley. They're all games rookies. So that's a kind of a cool stat for you people out there. So, and that's why I was really impressed, because they are a true games rookie team, and what they did at semifinals, I think they can carry that momentum. Obviously, they showed that they're a strong team. I think they do have some limitations, especially when it comes to like maybe some of the monostructural events, but I think their strengths will do really well against this team, this field.
I'm looking at this here, and I think that you have Torian Mayhem in 11. And then that obviously you have 1124 inside the top 10. I have Torian Mayhem in the top 10. I think that the other 9 of our top 10 teams are going to be the same, which means that a majority of these teams in the middle region are also the same.
Yeah, I was trying to find. Well, it's highlighted there. Maybe we can talk about that one first. Ocean State with Ethan.
So, Brian, you go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, you also probably could have highlighted the Krieger Riz team that I have in 11 and you have 17. Like those are the two that we've kind of seen flipped here. This Ocean State team is, I can't get a pulse on them. Like they were so good in quarterfinals. They were not very good at all at Crash Crescendo. They were middle of the pack, kind of like nothing impressive, nothing too bad either at semifinals, like some highs, some lows. And I just think that they're not consistent enough against the quality of teams that are in this field, collectively, to finish much better than middle of the pack. Like I feel like 15th is kind of the best they can do. This is soon I'm going to show you guys a graphic about the turnover in the teams field. But like Patrick said, there's a lot of experience in this field, and if you start to have some really poor finishes, I think that you're going to slip down a few spots on the leaderboard.
Yeah, especially if we don't know how many events there are and per day, because you only have a limited amount of shots. I think Ocean State, they struggled at semifinals, but I think they only had 5 workouts. I think if it across a broader games, they're gonna have to earn those additional workouts. Obviously, with every cut, they can't afford to have a bad finish, which they started off at semifinals with a very terrible finish. They made some mistakes. And just like at Crash Crucible, they made some mistakes. They had some bad finishes, a bad ending. Fortunately, like Christine, I think it was Christine Best, who did not get hurt. We thought it was a lot more serious than it actually became. But there might have been some residual effect on that. But in any case, I think if Ocean State can make it through, start off strong, they can end up being one of the stronger teams just based on their experience.
And speaking of stronger teams, Christine Middleton is is up there. So and that's where I was just looking at is like and this is an interesting part where they clarified that Dave is doing the individual and Boz is doing the teams, because I think in any other year you could look at it and go, hey, the individuals are doing a heavy lift now or a clean ladder now. What are the teams going to do? So if you see an event like that, I still would likely think that Boz is going to follow suit in some ways. They're doing a lake swim. They're doing a lake paddle. They're doing Farrington Field event with the track, that type of stuff. I think there's likely a clean event or some sort of ladder coming, but
at least
team
a
like
barbell.
this,
It might be a
yeah.
different lift because they did have that complex at semifinals that the individuals didn't have.
Yeah, and they had
But I think of it from an equipment standpoint. If there's already barbells out there on the floor and they're doing a lifting event, probably going to, why not let the teams do something that involves the same equipment, even if it's not the exact same lifts.
Yeah. So I could see this team doing pretty well there. It'll be interesting. I mean, if they also get 12, 13 events, something like that, then where all those fall out. But look for them in that lift for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just went back and checked. Yeah, they had a first and a second and a 15th and a 16th and at semifinals, like just to show the polar extremes that team is capable of.
And I guess the Riz, you got to see this team a lot more. You got to see them in action. I'm not very familiar with them. I'm familiar with the Osler Krieger, philosophy, the training, all that. Really, they have a very good athlete, Nicole Herr, on that team. But I think stacking up against the other Oslo teams, I don't know. I'd like some of the other Oslo teams and some of the other teams ahead of them, just based on the experience.
Well, I mean, Var and Tobias have games experience. I think Morton might also actually. I'm not sure about Morton. Yeah, Nicole here is very good. I think she's good enough to compete at semifinals in Europe still, and I was like blown away with her movement quality, honestly, when I was training with them. And they have. I actually spent more time with this team than the other two while I was there. I went and did a swimming session with them in Norway, and I think that they're gonna be on. I do think they're going to be on the cusp of a top 10. And in fact, Mike, I wanted to ask you about this because the BLST team outperformed at semifinals, and they actually, I think, might have beat this team. PSL was the best of the three. But if there were three Krieger teams that finished inside the top 10, would they be in the running to win the Training Camp Cup award?
Well,
Boz has to come out with his own Training Cup award. Would be my immediate.
You still have mayhem teams in the team field. You have 6 designated mayhem teams too.
Oh, right.
And I think, and don't forget that the Prasanda Krieger team is considered a Krieger team, and Butcher's Lab Fleck had Krieger associated with their name. So they're, when you're talking about
5, I believe.
Yeah, you're talking about training camps. Are you discounting the teams from those?
Well, Peak 360 is a Krieger team too.
Oh, there you go, Mike. How about that? Seems like
it's worth the conversation. Krieger could definitely jump up in there with then Sahir Kaya. See where they all fall out. But yeah, I like it. That whole thing.
His brain's about to blow up right now.
I knew you would like that.
But I honestly like it better on this side, on the team side. If you were to say almost like F1 or something like that, where there's sister teams in F1 and things like that, where it's okay, well, we're racing separately, but we're on the team together for Red Bull and stuff like that. It works a little bit better here than where they actually are going for an affiliate or going for a program or things like that versus okay, well, it's Danielle and plus Dallin and James. It's okay, sure. But well, actually we have to make sure all those athletes actually say Brute next to their name. But here it makes sense. Krieger showing up with 5 teams. I had to ask our friend Chad Schroeder if that was a record, and then he pointed out to me as well, Mayhem has however many every year. So
6 this year.
There's a lot of details and nuances that come in there. Of those Mayhem teams, one is training at Mayhem. Of the Krieger teams, 3 of them are training across at Oslo.
Yeah, that's what was pointed out. And then it was well, there was the year with Independence and what was it, Justice?
Yep. And Invictus regularly sends multiple teams and have done that again this year. So I do think that if you're going to be recognizing training camps, to get a team to the games requires 4 athletes. If you have 3 teams from the same that are literally living in the same city, training at the same affiliate, that's 12 athletes going to the games. If they have a good performance there, and you're not going to factor that in to say that Krieger deserves some kind of at least a consideration for being one of the best training camps in the world, especially if it's just a fun award. I think, like you said, it's worth the conversation. All right, we're going to push into the top 10. Mike's got about 15 minutes left to go. And I just wanted to
wanna
show
see
you
these.
guys.
See if there's
Before
any
that,
any
before that, I
shenanigans
wanted
like
to show
yesterday.
you this
Go
one,
ahead.
Mike, because I know you're a fan of this type of stuff. So these are the teams. On the far right is this year's teams, and those are the ones that I have in the top 15. Patrick will show his top 10 picks in a minute, but I wanted to go down to 15 just to give you a picture of what the turnover is like in the team
Oh, okay.
competition.
Mhm.
So from 2021, 22, 23, the teams in red, nobody from those teams, I think, maybe it's possible I missed one athlete. I don't think any athletes from those teams are competing in the team competition this year. I might have missed one somewhere, but the teams or the gyms are not competing. And then the ones that are in that like mustard yellow, they have an athlete from that team that's
see that.
competing
Okay.
this year.
Yeah.
So like the Oslo teams, that's Lena Richter that's competing, the East Nashville team, and the Reykjavik team, that's Tola. Actually, and then Reykjavik has Lauren Fisher. One on Invictus, one on Peak. Plus 64 Torian and Selwyn. Both of those are Marnie Sykes that's competing on Royce Dunn's team this year. Trondheim, I mentioned, have two athletes that are both competing on Riz in VAR and Tobias. Oslo Blackout has one athlete, Veshlima Kolstad, that's competing on PSL. And then you see some teams like Eighth Day. And, I know Eighth Day surprised some people at the semifinals. I didn't realize that they didn't have their full slate of athletes competing at quarterfinals. And I do have them there ranked in the top 10 because they've been in the top 10 before, and they've been in the top 15 before 2 and 3 years ago. So you can just see that of the teams that are in green, that those are the teams that have had a presence at the games the last 3 seasons, and they're all filtering basically towards the top of the rankings that you're about to see from me, and likely also from PC. So I thought this graphic would be fun and helpful.
Yeah, it's great.
I like that graphic a lot.
I'm sort of interested to know, like, is there any team that's fully back this year, like we saw with Invictus 2 years ago, or the last 2 seasons?
No teams fully back. The closest is it was on that other page, is Mayhem Independence 3 out of 4.
Oh, okay.
and Prestanda 3 out of 4
with Kyra switching. Okay, yeah.
So maybe we'll start here.
All right. Not
You
too
ask
bad,
us, Mike.
PC.
What do you want
I'm not as shocked as yesterday, PC. Well, we'll skip the highlighted one for now. Let me just see. Okay, well, I mean, carry on maybe from the last conversation. Krieger jumping up, the Krieger PSL team, jumping up into the top 10 here. What makes this Krieger team stand above the rest of those?
For me, it's Ingrid and Veslima, the two women. They're very experienced. They're very good athletes. I mean, both of them are semifinal caliber athletes individually, and then I think the guys they have on this year's team, last year's guys they had on the team, they're really good athletes. They just didn't have that strength portion. I think they kind of the guys they have this year are a little bit more well-rounded than the Henriks that they had last year. They had, both guys were Henry.
Yep, I think that's well said. I have them one spot ahead of the Riz team. I have the BLS team in 16th. I do think it's possible for them to get 2 teams into the top 10. But this is it's a pretty competitive top 10. And I think that in a lot of the workouts, you're not going to be like, most of the top 10 best scores are going to come from the 10 best teams. Both of the Krieger teams they've been designed in a specific way, basically, because they have so many athletes to choose from, and their coaches make these decisions to try to put similar athletes together that they're likely to each take a hit on a specific workout here or there. I still think that they can have good workouts to offset them, but I don't think that some of the teams that I have kind of towards the top 6 really on this list are going to have that bad 1 or 2 performances, and therefore they're going to drop towards the bottom end of the top 10 rather than the top 5.
All right. The next thing I think about when I think about teams, and I think it's going to come up especially towards the top, is team history, team sort of cohesion. We do see a lot of these athletes are really from their affiliate. Obviously, once we get towards the top, it starts to play more of a role in the super team conversation. But somebody like Invictus Unconquerable, I know they had a little bit of a shakeup right at the beginning of the season with who was on the teams and stuff like that. You got them 7th and 8th here, and sort of flip-flop with 8th Day. What do you think of maybe both of those teams when it comes to like team cohesion and really trying to break into the top of the list here?
I mean,
Teams of team cohesion. Yeah, both these teams, they're almost interchangeable, I think. I mean, I think Invictus Conquerable probably has the advantage when it comes to strength with Phil and obviously with Hannah Black. But I think in terms of overall fitness, I don't know. They're both veteran teams with great athletes, and it's kind of hard to pick one over the other.
I know that Miss Muscarello was giving me a hard time about the picks. He says they're going to prove me wrong. They're going to finish higher than this. And like I said earlier, they definitely were a standout team in the West semifinal, along with the top Invictus team, who ended up pulling ahead of them a little bit towards the end of the weekend. And you look at those last three workouts: first, second for Invictus, third, second, fourth for Unconquerable. And then when you start to pile in the rest of these really good teams from around Europe and North America East, those, if Invictus is taking first on those workouts and Unconquerable is taking third, those thirds becomes fifths and sixth as some of these other teams slot in there. And while they did look like the clear second best team there, and I think they were, and I think they will be amongst those teams at the games, I just think that these other teams, especially the teams from Europe, are going to be especially those top two that have their Walleye and Prestanda, I think, which there shouldn't be a first R in Prestanda. That's on me. That those two teams are going to be better at the games than they were at the semifinals. And I just think, a sixth, seventh place finish for Unconquerable is a really good finish against this caliber of team.
And it sort of comes to mind is, we talked about camps a good bit yesterday. I'm sure we'll talk about it more tomorrow. When it comes to teams at camps or teams at affiliates, you really don't see that as much. So I wonder how much it does bring up that second team at some of these places, or in Krieger's case, or Oslo Krieger's case, like second or third team, when they're having the ability during the off season to not have to go to like a Crash Crescendo or something like that and to see where they stand. They can actually just look and say, okay, well, if they're in fifth and I'm in seventh, I can actually compete against a fifth place team the entire offseason, in and out, versus, and where we see that with the teams, with where athletes at Mayhem or somebody like that are actually able to sort of, I think PCU said yesterday, iron sharpens iron sort of thing. So it's cool to see maybe on the team side if they can sort of lift their second team up a little bit more. Oh, speaking of teams.
Speaking of sharpening iron, look at these two guys.
What's going on?
How you guys doing?
Oh, yeah, just finished a bit of fitness. It's bloody bright out here, that's for sure.
We were just talking about, teams training, and you're in Mayhem right now. Have you had a chance to train with the Mayhem team yet?
Yeah, surprisingly, we're on a Mayhem team, so we've been training together a bit.
Well, I met with the actual CrossFit Mayhem team.
Yeah, no, we haven't trained with them. We've done a bit of stuff with some of the other guys and girls, though. Cara got in on Monday, so we've just been sharpening the axe there. And, yeah, we've got a fair bit of stuff in, though, before that, which was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And I saw you making a little throwback to Wadapalooza 2022 in the comment section there.
Yeah,
as an athlete,
honest, I would have been more concerned if you had to put us on the podium, Brian, because you were so far off the mark that year at Wadapalooza that a little fifth, sixth place in there, that makes us feel a lot better.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because Patrick's picking you third. I picked you sixth. Do you prefer someone to have the confidence in you and put you up there, or would you rather say like, no, you know what, Brian, we'll show you once again?
Yeah, I like that one a little bit better. I like that. Put us down there on that sixth and seventh, and then let's see what we can do. Look, I think, honestly, I feel like we're a bit of an unknown quantity to everyone, including ourselves. There's some damn good teams in there, but like, this team has so much potential, so much talent, that we might just come out there and surprise a few people. I keep cutting James out. I don't know which way to turn this phone to include him.
There you
go. It's once you put him in the frame, the camera for some reason just blurs your face out. Oh.
And that very rarely happens.
Let me ask you this, because obviously you guys are very well known, and Cara, has a storied career as anyone in the sport. Having the chance to train with Emily a little bit, what would you want people to know about her before you guys compete next week?
She's a beast. She's really, really good. She's really, really good. I think she's kind of almost our secret weapon in that she is a little bit more of an unknown quantity. And I think she works really well within the types of events that we have as a team. I think some of the stuff that maybe she's not quite there with individually, she's able to do quite well on a team, and her skill set lends itself really well to that team competition format.
I think that, as you said, you guys are a little bit unknown entity, but my perception of you guys, after you qualified for the games was we're going to see a very different team out of them come to games. Have you guys had that experience yourselves?
Yeah, it's been crazy. Like, we all kind of came into this season down here knowing that as the competition progressed, we had a lot of room to grow. And it's been cool. I mean, it's been awesome training with this guy and just seeing, like, it's been a couple of years since James has really gone all in, and just sort of seeing, coming back to full fitness for us has been a lot of fun together. And I think, yeah, this is the best version of us that you're going to see this season. Where that stacks us up, I have no idea. But yeah, it's going to be, honestly, pretty enjoyable to see where we're at. That's why I sort of said I think we're a bit of an unknown quantity. We kind of went into semifinals being like, we feel good, like reasonably good. How good, we're not quite sure. And I mean, we certainly feel a lot better now. So yeah, where that puts us, we don't know. We're excited to see, though.
James, try to ask you one question, because you haven't competed in CrossFit too much in the past couple of years. Were you nervous at all trying to get back into shape for something like this, even though you've been doing other physical feats?
No, not really. The good thing about starting the team this year, Khan and Kara both said, let's just have a good time with it. And pretty much for the last couple of years, I've just been having a good time with fitness. So it's not too out of the ordinary for me. The skills and the lifting requirements, like the net of skills hasn't gone away. It's just building back a bit of capacity. And that's kind of like where we saw ourselves in the Open, was like, we might've been at like 50 or 60% at the Open. Quarters, we were like 60 to 70. Tory and Pro, probably 70 to 75. And now, like, we're coming into our stride. And I think it's just about building that capacity back.
Well, that's pretty exciting, and you're making me I don't want to say regret my pick. I mean, I feel like the teams down to 6-7 are all in the mix for the podium. I certainly think you guys are in there, and I'm excited to see what that level ends up being once game time rolls around.
We love where you put us, Brian. It's what we want.
I won't be upset if I'm wrong about that one.
Mike,
all right, guys, we're going to jump off and leave you, but we'll chat to you all soon.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
See you, legends.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, CJ, that said that kind thing before. We're all in on you too, baby. Bye.
Oh, wow. Man of the people.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, you got 2 minutes left. What do you want to say or ask us?
Well, so I did a buy sell with Morning Chalk Up. I think it's out this morning, and this I'll set it up, and maybe I'll listen to what you guys say after it, because I do have to jump soon. But Peak 360 Invictus, where I pointed out is 2 years ago and last year, we saw an Invictus team that, like, they were very close to winning, and then they won. And now we see it this year. There's a shakeup in who's on the team. Really, the whole team's different except for Joshua. Like, with me, I feel like that then gives a more even playing field that you then look at, not just like team history, team cohesion, but you also then just look at, like, okay, who's on the team and what are they going to do with it? So, like, that's where I then hand it maybe over to the Peak team, is to just say, okay, well, I think this team is just a step further. I think they're going to be closer than a lot of people think. I know, like, on the women's team or rankings yesterday, we all had sort of Tia and then a step down, and then Laura and a step down. What do you guys think of that? I might be dropping before I hear your whole answer, though.
PC, you want to go?
I think it's those teams, and probably a drop down, depending on Mayhem, Thunder, and Walleye. I think and Mayhem. But I think it's really those team, and then it's a step down. I think Peak 360 showed that at semifinals against Mayhem. Invictus showed that against their own Invictus team. They were heads above all the teams out west. But yeah, I think it's those two teams and probably a step down. The only other person, Mayhem, Thunder, like I said, we just heard, they're kind of an X factor and unknown. And those are the teams that you just don't know, because you run into that every year at some point in the game, some unknown that happens. And someone as known and knowable as you are, one of those things.
Yeah, that's where I would also get to point out, like, I think that's where Walleye is. Like, we just don't know what that team is capable of. We saw them at the semifinal, but, like, I think that is interesting, and you two can defend this, is, like, you sort of have Thunder and Walleye flip the other way with Mayhem in the middle of them. So, like, that is a place where it's like, hey, we think these two teams are the ones that are gunning for the top. And I agree, like Noah and Chandler, I would love to see them like start instigating each other a little bit around that. And then we see Walleye and Thunder, where it's like we just don't know what they're capable of, but we think they're capable of the podium for sure. And then we see Mayhem just after that, which I'm sure Angelo or somebody's going to hold that right against you, but keeping them off the podium. But yeah, I'm excited for what the teams are here. I wish they had way more spotlight. Maybe I wrote an article about this that I'll pump up a little bit. Maybe this is the last year that they do have it like this and they get their own spotlight at another time during the season. But I thank you guys for having me. I do have to drop.
All right, Mike. Well, we'll continue the conversation.
Yeah,
thanks for everything. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
No, I think PC, you're on the money there. Like to me, this is a two-man race in terms of the championship, unless someone does something that's incredibly surprising. I just think the caliber of athlete on those teams is really, really high. And I think it'll be close, but I don't see anyone beating that peak team. That seems like one of the strongest teams for going any of Rich's teams. Other than that, and even maybe relative to that, this seems like one of the best teams that's ever competed in the team competition. I mean, Noah, his individual accolades are great, but his team record in Wadapalooza is phenomenal as well, with multiple championships there. Tola clearly is like the consummate team competitor, and he's as motivated as ever. You know, his teams have come up short of the goal the last 2 years, despite having 4th and 2nd place finishes.
Yeah.
And you have a 3-time podium athlete in Lena Richter, who's never stood on top of the podium, and Matilda Garnes, who's multiple times made it into the top 20 at the games. Like the talent plus motivation plus the team chemistry. I mean, I don't think what we're seeing on Instagram from that team is butterflies and rainbows, and that they're actually having chaos in the background. Like, I think they're clicking on every front. I think that the living in Miami has been great for Lena and Matilda. And I don't see any negatives against this team heading into the games.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we've talked about this before. I think if Devin Kim would have came into season healthy and been on this team, I think we're talking I think we're talking a little bit, maybe a lot more closer. I mean, nothing against Jesse Smith, but and I think Jesse will have no problem saying a healthy Devin Kim is on a team is, she's an X factor. I mean, she's a deciding factor in something like this. But
I mean, she was on the championship team last year, and even it is a team, so it doesn't speak apples to apples, obviously. But Jesse's team was like 28th.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think they had to withdraw at some point, but either way, like there was a discrepancy there, and there was a reason that they won last year. All 4 of those athletes, including Devin and Joshua, like stepped up and took care of business.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately where, Invictus might kind of struggle at is maybe that chemistry, or just not having just the bigger guns than Peak 360 has.
I do think that this about Jessie Smith. I think she's a type of athlete that will like rise to the occasion. I mean, that's what I saw, at least from her at semifinals. I didn't feel like she was holding the team back. No. She may not have as an individual the same potential as some of the other girls on some of these teams, but when it comes time to rally, she's not the person that you're really concerned about, A, giving everything she's got, and B, probably outperforming on the day of competition. So, and that's what I took away from watching them in the semis out in West Coast. And I do think that they're like the solid number 2 pick coming into the games this year. It's competition. You never know, but I do feel similarly to the women's field, where like Peak 360 is the clear favorite. Invictus is the clear second favorite with a chance. And then it's a big group of maybe 5 to 6 behind that could claim that last podium spot.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about the unknown. I guess Mike mentioned something about like Walleye Orca. I think with them, they're obviously a lot of potential. You have 3 individual games athletes, and then Christoph, who has been on the cusp many a times. And, there's, he's just in a stacked European men's field. It's just hard for him. But I think the thing with them is like, I think there's for some reason, it's just like I just can't get past my head that there might be some type of how healthy are they?
Absolutely fair concern with, just given the, the history of some of those athletes there.
Mhm.
I like the Walleye Orca team because of their women. I think that, we know that the history of the team competition, you have to have women that can carry the burden, carry the load. Mia Hesketh and Jamie Simmons are phenomenal individual games athletes, have had success on teams at the games in the past. Elliot is like the perfect type of a guy to have on a team. He's just good across the board. He's going to, he may not lift the biggest weights, but guess what? You have a guy on the team that does lift the biggest weights, pairing with him in case that comes into play. Christoph can take the front of the worm, which is huge to have someone like that can just handle that extra burden up front. And I think that they were, they had to navigate around a potential injury scare at semifinals, and they still had a pretty good showing in every workout. I do think similarly to the Thunder team, they'll be better at the games than they were at semis. But this Prestanda team cannot be overlooked or counted out. That girl, Lisa Anderson, is like, she's amazing. If you didn't get to see some of the stuff that she did at semifinals, I hope that we get to see a couple of her kind of skills put on display at the games on the big stage. And you got Maria Langfors, who's an experienced athlete in her own regard. Ilebro and Langsved, those three were on the team last year. This is a really strong team, and I think that the Podium is certainly within reach for them. They were 5th, 6th last season, and 4 of those teams are not back in the same capacity this year. So I think they're in a good position to move up closer to the Podium too.
Yeah, they're definitely one of those teams that can win events. I mean, I think that's what ultimately it's going to come down to is it's winning events and then having a separation between those teams. I just think Peak 360 and Victus, you're going to see a lot of 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, maybe. But I think Prestanda has a chance to win some events, but will they have enough distance between them and other teams? And I think that's ultimately what we get with Mayhem too, is we don't talk about Mayhem, but I think that's probably the best overall team. Like if it was just like a team implement, whether it be a worm or whatever, they're probably one of the best, if not the best in this field. And I mean, they went toe to toe. They gave it a shot with Peak 360, and they were able to, hang with them. They didn't have the result they wanted. Finishing, they finished second, and I mean, I don't know if you can pull that up. How many second places they finished at semifinals behind Peak 360? It's at least 3 out of the 5, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this is that Mayhem team is again returning 3 of 4. They had 2 second places, a 4th, and 2 5ths.
Yeah,
both of the seconds were to the Peak team by about 10 and 15 seconds on events 3 and 5. They were 30 pounds behind on the lift. They were a minute behind on the first event, and they beat them on event 4 by about 15 seconds. So the margins are not what?
Yeah. 3 and 5. Those were both events that had worm in it, correct?
Event 5 definitely did. Event 3
was the one with the worm. Yeah.
That was a long one, 23, 24 minutes. Yes. So this is a great team. They had 3 of their athletes are returning from last year. Zoe Jones was making top 10s at the games 2 years ago before coming over there. And they're putting in Molly McGrandy in place of Kyra Milligan, as we mentioned, with some other teams, teams that were placing ahead of them last year, not in the field this year. So I think that there's opportunity to move up. There are some other ones coming in. I just think they're going to be, I don't know if Podium's within reach for them, but I think that anything 4 through 8 is really very possible.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. I mean, I'm really interested to see what Mayhem Thunder does. Just talking to Con, just that small conversation we had just now. Then it's like they're excited about it. I'm really cool. It's going to be really cool to see.
That's an interesting question from Lynn. Do 2 individual athletes make a team better than 4 really good team athletes? Specifically looking at Mayhem versus Invictus. I mean, it's a great question, and I think that what we've seen is yes, assuming that the other 2 athletes on the team are competent enough to not slow you down. That if you look at the teams that are winning the CrossFit Games, they're regularly comprised of 1 to 3 athletes that could also make some pretty serious noise at the games. But then if you look, last year you had that Invictus team that's like maybe none of, we saw Jorge and Brittany Weiss give it a shot this year, and they didn't make it as individuals. Same with Devin, even though she had some injuries. And Alchama has always come up short when he's tried to make it as an individual too. So that was kind of the antithesis. So it's kind of season to season, a little bit team to team. But if you're looking at two teams that on paper look really close on the team style workouts, we know there's going to be some workouts that give a home run hitter, or it's just a superstar of an athlete like Noah or Chandler, an opportunity to do something special. And that can make a difference if you're getting really, really close between two teams.
Another good example that you brought up Invictus would also be the Oslo teams of the past. 3 times podium, all those, they're team athletes, and Lena's kind of taking that mantle. And then
we've seen those athletes compete individually. Lena has tried, showing when she did that in Madrid and Dubai. Ingrid was at Dubai last year. She did pretty good to end up taking 10th, but it's not the same kind of success that they have on a team. And Nicola Bilodel, he was, the fittest man in Norway back in 2019 and did okay, but ultimately his best success also came on the team side of things.
Yeah, I think there's really there's arguments for both sides. But I think currently, with the state of teams now, you're going to see a lot more of these like individual athletes, especially as they get a little bit older in their careers. Maybe, if they want to extend it, like I think it's a good decision. We kind of mentioned it before, where I think Mike brought it up, where it's not a bad idea to kind of start your career on a team, then go and then follow your individual aspirations, and then maybe end it off on a team.
Bookend it.
Yeah, bookend it. It definitely.
Yeah, if you're good enough to make it as an individual, for sure. If you're just short of that, look at Kyra Milligan. She went and did a team last year. We've talked to her and about how much she learned, grew as an athlete, improved by being around in a team environment like that and getting that games experience. And we didn't talk about it yesterday when we talked about her. Obviously, she's been able to make the step to qualify to the games, and whether that experience from last year competing on a team is going to pay off or not, we'll find out next week. But she was able to use that experience from that season to take the next step in her individual career as well.
Yeah, and she's said that it has, in terms of getting to the games, which was always a goal. So, but that's our team's picks. Obviously, if you go to our Instagram page, you'll be able to see Brian's picks, and I'll throw up our picks, side by side up on our stories. That way you can kind of take a look at it. So that way it's out there for public record. So that way I look like a genius when my podium's better than Brian's. And then I can
just ride in all your favorite, your best friends to the championship.
I can anoint myself as the best analyst, with my own metrics.
Oh, you could spin it any way you want to. Yeah,
exactly. I just use my own metrics. I think before we go off air, yesterday was fun. Obviously, tomorrow we have a big show with the men's. I know we're really looking forward to tomorrow's show. I'm really excited to kind of like see how my picks stack up with yours. I think it's going to be maybe even a little bit more surprising than the women's picks I had. I'm excited about it.
If you watched the show yesterday, that's a big statement. Go check out his picks number 2 and 13.
Yeah. Those, just check out those picks. But I did get a lot of comments saying, hey, some people agreed with them. Obviously, our comments were kind of blowing up on that. But, that's the fun thing about it is like, Brian, that was like one of the first times we ever did anything like this. What was it? Was it Fellner that I had like, it was one of the first times when we started working together at Morning Chalk Up, and I made a selection and you kind of just like questioned it. And then, of course, you were right. I was wrong. I took a chance, but
I'm going to take this question from V. I didn't want to derail the team conversation, but thoughts on Ariel saying there have been leaks from the demo team. This is not surprising to me to hear something like this. I'm a little surprised that she said it in publicly. I would say more so than the fact that there are leaks. The elite athlete community in CrossFit is extremely tight knit. And not everybody gets along with everyone, and not everybody is everybody's best friend. But, straight off the bat, when the demo team was announced, was the first thing people saw? Sydney Wells is on the demo team. Her twin sister is competing at the CrossFit Games. Mm-hmm. Like you can have people sign NDAs all that you want to. nobody adheres to those. That's been my experience, at least. I cannot tell you the number of people who speak about things to me or to someone I know that they're not supposed to be talking about. If you decide to share information with a certain group of people at this point, you have to be extremely selective of who that group of people is. Otherwise, you have to assume that some things are going to be leaked. I have my own personal thoughts about ways to counteract that. I don't want to talk about them publicly because that kind of defeats the purpose of it. But
Is there you sign NDA not to speak about your?
No, but those are like, this is a reality that that is existing in the space. It's I don't want to say it's like, the word gets around, and a lot of people know about a lot of things that you wouldn't think that they're supposed to know about. And if you are someone who is trying to be conscientious, yeah, that might be a great point, Melanie, that she said it publicly to make it public because she's annoyed that it's happening. She is one of the athletes, and there's a lot of them that would prefer to have as little information as possible and believe that the way that she prepares sets herself up better than her competitors to react to information quickly and have a great performance in the first go at it without having any time to process or prepare for it. I think that in terms of the CrossFit Games specifically, as a competition within the Games season, it's the most important time to have that. And I know that Dave does this testing to the nth degree, and there's this appeal to being on the demo team and to having all that stuff. I would personally rather see small mistakes in terms of programming than have information leaked at random intervals to different groups of people. There's athletes that are going to have, and coaches that will have 2 weeks advantage on getting some of that information compared to others that aren't as well integrated. Some of the rookies, some of the foreign athletes potentially that are going to be coming there and finding out about it when the people that are already on paper better than them have known about it for 2 weeks. And to me, that discredits the competition to a certain degree. And I do think that it's avoidable.
No, I agree. Yeah, just hearing that. I mean, you had Hiller, he's talked about this thing. Taylor Self has talked about it in terms of like, they hear this stuff and then they release it and people call them, why are you releasing it? Well, because it should be fair across the board. And I think, again, like Lynn brought it up, Ariel brought it up because she's annoyed by it, that certain people are pervy to certain such to just inside information or whatever. And just like, you want to have a level playing field. That's why we have like drug testing. Why can't we it's like, it's all that's there is level the playing field and find who truly is who the best is.
TJ agrees. Yeah, I mean, and then Melanie kind of backs up with an example. Dave focusing so much on testing, and there was a workout that was almost broken anyway. I've done a lot of programming for competitions, and I'm programming for athletes that are much better than me. Just wanted to reemphasize that. Your pick's going to be any more crazy, then get that out of there.
Try.
And sometimes, yes, I look at a workout and I'm like, dang, I didn't quite give the athletes credit for how good they were, or, oh, that was a little harder than I thought it would be. But most of the time it's pretty good. And Dave has so much experience programming. And now I understand if there's presentation things that he's not sure about or whatever, but I think that he could put together a very comprehensive and effective test with a much smaller group of people being exposed to. Like, I don't know if he needs to do the full rounds of testing to get the results that we want to see. And I do think that in this sport, one of the things that makes it distinct and separate is that ability to perform in a quick turnaround. It's, maybe I have a bias in that regard because I'm good at that. Like, I'm one of the few people that I know that usually doesn't do better on a second attempt at an open workout. Like, you give me the workout and I see it, I'm pretty good at evaluating what it is compared to my potential and having a good execution in the first run. And I love athletes that are able to do that at the highest level of this sport also. When you go and watch, I mean, I don't know how many times I've spoken about this publicly, but at the Chaos event in 2018, I didn't know the workout. And there was a photographer there who knew from working with me that I was usually pretty good at identifying winners or unlikely winners of workouts. And he asked me, who's going to win this? And I was like, what? There's 40 athletes on the field of play, and I don't know what the workout is. He's like, yeah, but just give me like 2 names. And I gave him 2 names on the men's side and 2 names on the women's side. And in those 2 names was the winner of both. And it was like, what was I drawing on? I was drawing on athletes that I knew are pretty good at doing well when there's limited information. They're athletic, they're very fit, obviously, and they're good at adapting on the fly. And I think that that's a skill set that should be rewarded at the CrossFit Games. So I'm hoping that if there are leaks, that they're very minimal and that they're not to the extent where there's athletes out there that already know the full breadth of the test.
Yeah. It really, especially if people find out about it after the fact or they brought it up afterwards, like, hey, I heard so and so, because what it does, it soils the game. It soils the games. It brings, I don't know. It just be bad.
It's a distraction. This is, we talk about this also, is that, there are people like Andrew out there. There are people like Sevan and Spin and Peter and Taylor and all these guys. And when there's stuff that is not presented in a good manner, then that's what the topic of conversation becomes. And one of the things that I'm always striving to do is to point back to the athletes, point back to the performances. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to celebrate more. But if the people that are running the sport or competitions are making, blatant mistakes, whatever those are, and they can be a huge spectrum of things, it often steals the spotlights from the athletes to a certain degree, which I think is just unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. So this popped up today. I figured we could talk about this as well before we go.
Yeti CrossFit Games telecast on ESPN platforms to be brought to you by Yeti in the US. Yeah, pretty cool. We have a good relationship with Chad over there at Yeti, and he's done some nice things for us in the past, and I'm sure we'll continue to. So this is really cool to see this announced this morning. Obviously a very well-known and successful company that's also been integrated with the CrossFit space a little bit these past few years. So it's nice to see them elevating their presence in terms of being a partner in the broadcast with the US for ESPN, and also helping to create that opportunity for the games in general to have that platform.
Yeah, it's really cool when you see like people that we've had a pleasure to work with, and they just continue just doing great things. And obviously Yeti's been a part of CrossFit for a while now. So, to kind of see them kind of continue that partnership and in a bigger way, to be a title sponsor of the broadcast is something they haven't normally done. Yeti's usually one of those behind the scenes, or you just see the stuff out there, but you never see them like being presented as a main sponsor. So, and we've gotten to know Chad Nelson over there really well, and his whole team, and they've just been great. And it's just really cool to see this. And bravo to Yeti and bravo to CrossFit for making something like this happen. Speaking of partnerships, again, shout out to HGR CBD, our homie Carl and Dimitri, everyone at the whole home HGR team. Follow Homegrown Relief for a chance to win $50 store credit. Just hit that right there. Scan that right there, and you'll be entered to win $50 store credit. Get all types of cool stuff, including Brian's favorite, the Relief Stick. So make sure you give them a follow. And check out the product. And also, if you use friend 20 at checkout, you get 20% off your purchase. So, yeah. So thanks again to Carl. Great support. I know he's doing good things. Carl's had a busy schedule. I think he was in your neck of the woods while you were gone. Went and visited.
I was bummed about that.
Yeah. So so look for some cool stuff that he has coming up. It looked like he's doing like some type of affiliate series, or just doing some stuff with Sentinel Training and Taylor. So and I know we got some stuff that are kind of in the works where we're going to do some similar stuff like that as well, including with you, Brian. So that's all I got, Brian. So good job.
That's
on team.
two of three done. Women were yesterday. If you were just joining late here, you can go back and check that out. We go 1 through 40 on the women's side. Just finished up the teams today, and saving the men for tomorrow. I think it's the most difficult rankings to do. I think it's one of the deepest, if not the deepest men's fields that we've ever seen. I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it tomorrow. There's guys that I have outside of the top 30 that I can't believe I have them outside the top 30, but I just ran out of space. There's that many good and talented men in the field this year.
I agree. And I think the spin poll might be coming out soon. So, keep an eye out for that, the media poll. My poll, the way I really only have to bring our top 25. I did 1 through 39, and that ended up being my rankings predictions going in. So, keep an eye out for that. And again, if you haven't, make sure you head over to the Wodapalooza Instagram, click on the hyperlinks up on the top. It'll direct you to the page to vote for the team captains. and you're like, okay, why should I vote for the team captain? Well, the team captains get to choose their additional 2 teammates. So, the women's captain will pick additional women's to be on the team. Men will do the same. So, you got what, one day, 10 hours, 34 minutes. It'll take literally 2 seconds. Again, we'll put the link in the description, so that way you can click on it, or say go to the Instagram page, click on the hyperlink at the top of the page, and just follow the directions. So it was fun kind of doing that live on air, showing everyone. We're gonna have to clip that and maybe, tag Wadapalooza. So, but yeah, that's all I got, Brian. You got anything else?
I don't think so. Back to coaching tonight, first time in a while. So looking forward to that. And yeah, just try to get some stuff organized for the men's show tomorrow.
Yeah, what do I got? Yesterday was really hectic for me, but it looked like all my phone calls and talking to a bunch of people paid off. So I'm really woke up to some good news today, and it was really cool. And then yeah, so just wait. We're just kind of wait until next week, so before we ship off. But pretty excited this weekend. Gonna head up to Dallas and spend some time with some of the games athletes, and maybe get some footage, maybe some stuff. Just keep an eye out for this weekend. Might have some stuff for you, kind of like a preview. Since I can't be there this weekend, it'll be my games and getting my fulfillment of being around so many great athletes and so many great people. I know CrossFit does have something planned tomorrow, I believe. Let me pull that up real quick. Sorry, I forgot I wanted to talk about this earlier, but if you're in the Dallas area, they are actually doing basically a meet and greet, a seminar, CrossFit athlete seminar. Let me pull it up here.
Is this the one with Dahlstrom and Moritz and Rebecca Fuseli?
Yes. So, and Chase. So, yeah, if you're in the Dallas area tomorrow, between, I believe the time is between 10 and 12. You head out to where we got Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tarrant County's Eastside Branch on Thursday, August 1st. CrossFit seminar staff, as well as Moritz Feibig, Jacqueline Dahlstrom, and Rebecca Foussier will be on hand, as well as Chase. So if you're in the area, make sure you swing by, say hi. It'll be really interesting. I wish this was later on. Otherwise, I would try to make it. But unfortunately, I won't be able to. So, yeah. So if you're in the area, go ahead and check it out. So
speaking of Chase, I think that they're doing a show here in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, they're
John,
renaming
JR, and Peter renaming the 2021 workouts. That's fun. That was the year that they just called them Event 1 through 15.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Yeah,
flip over there if you want to have some fun with those guys. I think it'll be it's a good group of people they have. You might get some clever names, maybe some Irish subtleties. I don't know. Who knows what Peter will come up with.
Yeah.
JR will probably be super thoughtful, and John, John's always good for a good laugh and entertainment. So should be a fun show. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, they're really cool. But all right, everyone, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support as always. But we're back tomorrow with a banger. Shout out to Con and James for coming on for that brief second. Always great to see him. I'm kind of bummed I won't be there next week to hang out with him. But guess what he's doing? Him and James are coming to Stuttgart, Germany during Oktoberfest to do a seminar. So they're going to be about 30 minutes.
That's not what they're coming there for.
Yeah. The way they advertise is workout and Oktoberfest. But yeah, Con's going to be in Europe and Germany for about 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm pretty excited about that. So it'll be fun. But cool. Well, I appreciate everyone. Again, thanks for the support. And as always, be friendly.